One of the most powerful features of Databar is the JSON expander. If you're working with nested values or complex data structures and JSON files, then you can use the JSON expander in order to unpack those values, to flatten the data, and to build more complex formulas without writing any code or additional connectors. So here I have an example of a Google Maps scraper where I've already run 3 queries. I ran a query for restaurants in New York, restaurants in LA, and restaurants in Boston. And in each case, I wanted to only get 10 locations, so I scraped 10 locations from each one. There are 2 ways how you can use the JSON expander right now. You can either create new columns from rows in your data, or you can send these locations to a separate spreadsheet. You can then run further enrichments on top of it. So here, let's click into the locations that we scraped for restaurants Los Angeles. I'll click on the cell, and once you do that, you'll see a pop-up which shows the data that we collected. We'll click on the 10 items that it found, and the list will expand into the 10 items. We can further click into one of them. So each one of those items is a separate restaurant. So one way that we can work with this data is if we will only want to extract, let's say, the first value, we can open up this first location and click on the select button on the right and create a new column out of it. Let's name this new column restaurant name and click create. We can see that Databar creates a new column and extracts the first value from each list into a separate column. However, we have 10 locations for each row, and we don't want to lose the other 9 which we've collected here. So why don't we just write this data to another table and flatten this list of locations. We'll click on write data to another table, and we'll see another pop-up which will let us set up the exporter. Now, we can either send these values to a brand new table, or we can map it up to an existing table that we already have inside Databar. But I'll go ahead and create a new table and give it a name. Next, I'll need to select which columns I want to send to this new table. So I already have the top 5 automatically populated, but I can add more. So we have the city, their logo, their name, their website, the type of location that it is. Let's also add their about section, and we'll also add their rating. We might also want to add their phone number, so let's do that. Next, we have our run settings. So the include static data from other columns is particularly handy if you want to know what the source query was from. So in this case, let's say I select the search query column. So every time that a new location is created in this new table, the search query will be duplicated across all the rows. So I'll be able to see where each location came from, which query. I can also automatically run data exports when the source column changes. So let's say I run another enrichment here, or I add more rows to this table, then this exporter will run automatically. And I can also check for duplicates at the destination. Now, once I'm done, I click Save. And a new exporter column appears in my table. I'll also see this pop-up at the bottom, which links to the table that was created. So let me click onto this, and there it is. So this table is going to be empty for now because we haven't exported any data yet, but let me run these first 3 rows. And it'll show me 10 rows extracted for each one because there are 10 locations in each of these cells. Now when I go to the Google Maps restaurant locations, I'll see all of these locations populated in my table. Now, if we add another scrape, like let's say restaurants in Portland, once this 4th scraper is completed, I can then run this exporter one more time, and this data will also get added to this new table. The JSON expander is also particularly handy if you are connecting webhooks. So let me open up a blank table. When you're setting up webhooks, you'll see that there are 2 options here where you can either add raw JSON to the table, or you can map webhook data right away. If you choose to add raw JSON to the table, then the output from the webhook will look something like this, and you'll be able to map it using the JSON expander the same way that we just exported these locations.